Hey Spider Nation, welcome back to another episode of Spider-Man's Tangled WebShow. I'm Jonathan, webmaster of SpiderManFanRave.com, and joining me tonight is James. What's going on, James?
Not much. Just got off of work like a couple hours ago, like 3 hours ago. Uh, had dinner at Taco Bell. That was okay. Got a new bank account today too. Today also. I'm enjoying life, and I'm trying to think of everything else besides me going on a half-hour rant on how goddamn awful the Dino Charge finale was for Power Rangers this year. Because I don't think John wants this to turn into a Power Ranger podcast where it's just me bitching for about 3 hours about the most biggest what the fuck mind, makes it just raises too many questions. Okay, I'm just gonna stop now.
Alright, what have I been up to this week? School, snow. It snowed today. I was so happy. It was the first snow of the season, and it was the best thing ever. But school, snow, parks, stuff like that. Just normal.
Filled with dinosaurs because they never went extinct.
That's a Power Rangers reference for those of you who are not getting it. But yeah, just the life of a suburban, or not really suburban, but a rural person in Northeast Ohio. But
Who has a pet Velociraptor as a pet now because they never went extinct?
dude, I don't have a pet Velociraptor, but you know what? That could be kind of cool. Like, just a Velociraptor for. Wait, would I be able to take it for walks, or would it take me for walks? Like, I feel
No, it
like
would eat you.
there'd be no need to exercise it because I'd be dead. It's like, I feel like there might be a bit of a power struggle there. But this week, in terms of Spider-Man, there wasn't a whole lot of news or anything. There wasn't anything big that came out. There's a rumor that we might get a Spider-Man trailer with Star Wars Rogue One, or Rogue One, a Star Wars story, or whatever that's called. So,
I heard at least there might not be a trailer, but one of those like behind the scenes things, like come to Cinemark. They might have like a behind the scenes little thing for it.
So we might get a Spider-Man trailer within the next, I don't know, when does that movie come out? Next month or something?
I think it's exactly a month. I think it's December 16th or something like that.
So it's like, yeah, we might get a Spider-Man trailer for the end of the year as an early Christmas gift. I don't know. That movie's like still, what, 7 months away, so we're barely even thinking about it, but that was just a rumor that popped up on the internet this week. But something else that came out this week, Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 4, number 21. And right off the bat, I'm just going to tell you, this is not an Amazing Spider-Man comic. This is a 90s Clone Saga Scarlet Spider comic. Because Peter Parker, well, our Peter Parker, 616 Peter Parker, is not even in this issue. It's Kane and Spider-Gwen the entire time. Obviously you can probably tell that from the cover and the fact that, it's Carrion versus Kane, but you know what? It's not even an Amazing Spider-Man issue. I'm just going to throw that out there at the outset. It's like, you probably didn't really need to read this, but we read it anyway. So, we're going to start off Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 21, Live Another Day. Writers Dan Slott and Christos Gage, penciler Giuseppe Camuncoli, inkers Cam Smith and Roberto Poggi? It looks like Poggi. Okay. Jason Keith, colorist, VC's Joe Caramagna, letterer, Alex Ross, cover artist, assistant editor Allison Stock, associate editor Devin Lewis, editor Nick Lowe. And this is the title of this issue. I don't remember if I said it earlier. Live Another Day. That is the title of the story. And this basically explains that Kane was the other. And during Spider-Verse,
No! Really?
And during Spider-Verse, he transformed into the other's giant spider form. And he killed
No! Really?
And he killed Solus, but then he got killed by Morlun. And then he after he died in the gigantic other spider body, he broke out of it. Because that was shown way back in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3, number 15, which is already getting hard to keep track of. But yeah, basically, this is showing that Kane's alive again. So, yay! There's that.
Because he came out of the cocoon like Peter did in the other storyline. Ha ha ha.
So there's for you Scarlet Spider fans. But don't worry, you're gonna get a middle finger before this issue ends. Not from me, but from the writers.
Why would Scarlet Spider fans be given the middle finger?
You'll see, James, as the issue goes on.
Oh yeah, because Kane's calling himself the Scarlet Spider.
But so Kane breaks out and he's like, "I'm alive? Yes, Kane Parker. Though the other is dead, it seems you remain. Who? I'll kill. Stand down, warrior. I am Karn, now the Master Weaver, both protector and prisoner of the web of life and destiny." And so basically he's like, "I'll send you anywhere you want to go, blah, 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 blah." And then right as he's like, literally just making Kane a suit out of nothing, pretty much.
I'll send you to any time you want. Kane presents the dinosaurs. I'm sorry, I'm still on that tonight.
But as he's weaving Kane's suit, for whatever reason, he decides to weave the chest last. But during this whole time, he has not noticed that Kane is carrying the carrion virus, or not carrying the carrion virus, but his body is clone degenerating. He's going through his cells are breaking down, clone degeneration, and he's just like, "Oh, the other must have been keeping me healthy, and it's gone now. I have to find another way. Just send me home." "I fear it is not that simple. Kane, you can never go home again." What? And so, Karn, or the Master Weaver, or whatever you want to call him, explains that basically there's been an outbreak of carrions, like, across the multiverse, in, like, different universes, because of clone degeneration and stuff like this. And so Kane's like, "You know what? I'm going to go to these worlds, and I'm going to figure out what's behind this." And so he goes to a bunch of different universes, in a bunch of different cities. Excuse me. And he's trying to find the source of the carrion outbreak. And what he discovers is that all these carrion outbreaks start in cities that have major Parker Industries research facilities in them. So he's got kind of like the common thread between all of them. But at one point, he tries to break into he breaks into Spider-Gwen's, I don't know if it's her base of operations or whatever, and she discovers him and she takes him down, and he's like, "Listen, just don't beat the shit out of me. I'm just here for supplies. Please don't hurt me." "Wait, I know you. Kane, right? I mean, I met a version of you. What world are you from? And what are you trying to pull? Breaking in?" "I'm the same Kane you knew, and I didn't break in. I live here, but you can't get near me unless you want to end up like this." And so he shows her his carrion virus, and he's like, "You can't touch me because I'm contagious, blah, 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 blah. You can't come near me." And she's like, "We're wearing full body costumes. It's not that big of a deal. Like, I'm not going to be contaminated by you or whatever." And so
Because, cloth suit can't just have it, coming first still.
And so Kane explains how it's Parker Industries. Parker Industries merges with New You and alternate universes, and it starts the carrion outbreak, and that's what causes this whole mess. And so they go to another alternate universe where Miles Warren and Peter Parker are already working together in the New You stuff. And we see Peter and Miles, Peter and Warren, they're trying to stop the carrion outbreak that's already started to spread in their dimension. But they fail epically, and Kane steals their research. But before they can get away, they run into basically a 90s-looking Kane that's in that universe. And so they try to take him on, and he's also got the carrion virus, by the way. So they try to take him on, and they manage to take him down, and they take him back to Loom World, which is where Karn, the Master Weaver, is, and it's like their base of operations. And they basically perform an autopsy on him, and they realize that it's the New You stuff that is actually causing the clone degeneration and the cellular breakdown. So they explain this to the Master Weaver, and he tells them that in Kane's own homeworld, 616, the clone conspiracy plot has started, so the New You stuff is on its way. But they see that Parker Industries and, they see it, they've not teamed up yet, and they can still stop it, so they go off to their, full force on intent on stopping it. And so, this is where we see the clone of Gwen Stacy get kidnapped and replaced with Spider-Gwen. So Spider-Gwen goes undercover. They take the clone of Gwen back to wherever they're hiding out, and also and also
I'm sorry to say that shit from that issue. I'm sorry.
and then for whatever reason, I honestly do not know why they did this. They decide to jump into a random flashback for the last page of the issue because it flashes back to just before he and Spider-Gwen left for 616, where Kane explains that he's going to die soon so that they can end the issue on the whole note of, yes, this is a new chapter in the life of Kane Parker, but sadly, it will be his last. So screw you, Kane fans who were happy to see him back. They're just going to kill him off again. Like, they killed this character a year ago, then they brought him back. And James said this to me just before the show. They killed Kane just to bring him back, just so they could kill him again. It's like, I feel like there's a more efficient way to do this. Like, what is your ultimate goal here, Marvel? I feel like you're kind of stretching this way more complicated than it needs to be. But yes, that is Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 21. James, what did you think of this issue?
Show 1.
What?
Oh, sorry. NXT TakeOver Wrestling pay-per-view.
I was gonna
Samoa Joe just beat Shinsuke Nakamura.
say,
And people are shocked because Shinsuke Nakamura just dropped the title to Samoa Joe, and everybody thought Samoa Joe was leaving for the main WWE now. I guess not.
I was gonna say, who is Joe and what did he win? Oh, James is watching TV again.
Oh, sorry. It's just shocking. And nobody thought he was going to lose. Shinsuke Nakamura. Okay, but anyways, the point being. I forgot what I was going to start. Yeah, it feels really weird that they would bring a character back just to say he's dying. You brought a character back from the dead to say he's dying.
It's almost like when Slott wrote Spider-Verse, he forgot that he needed Kane for this issue, or for this storyline. So he's like, oh shit, I killed that character. Well, I have to bring him back. But I already wrote that I kill him again. Well, this is going to be awkward.
Because here's the thing. I don't think he's dying. I think this is just an excuse to give him back his old, destroyed, clone-generated face. It's them bringing it all. Remember, it's comics. It all has to go back full circle. And this is Kane once again being the degenerating clone that minutes from death but never died in the original Clone Saga. So that's all this is, in my opinion, just bringing Kane back to be Market Kane, in the mask. Who am I? I'm a mystery man. What is my motivation? What is my purpose? Must not kill Peter but Ben and protect Mary Jane because I'm having visions of her dying. That's all they're going back to. They're going back to old school Kane. That's what it feels like. And the rest of the issue, again, it's just... We bought a Spider-Man book, and it's a flashback that's inside of a flashback about how two characters who are the main focal points of the plot, and neither one of them is Peter Parker. Peter's the guy, he's the best way to look at it. Peter's the damsel in distress in his own book. He's the one who they have to save in order for him not to join them, to join EU.
And I have a feeling that we're going to be talking a lot more about that topic when Clone Conspiracy number 3 comes out, because based on where they're hinting that, where not even hinting it, where they're pretty much outright saying this story is going, I have a feeling that I'm not going to enjoy Clone Conspiracy number 3. Just going to throw that out there. James is watching TV again.
Because I didn't know you were talking to me.
All right, James, but any other thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, number 21, before we move on?
It's just more of... This stuff should happen in Amazing Spider-Man. because the whole storyline should be happening in Amazing Spider-Man. It's weird. We're reading a tie-in to a Spider-Man book in the Amazing Spider-Man. Why, if you didn't want to tell us in the main story, they could have literally cut and indensed this and put this at the end of issue 2. It's just like, especially from what I read, it's just like I told John, don't let me do the plot summary, because literally I could sum it up in like 2 sentences. Kane is clone degenerating again. They did autopsy to Kane's body, and that was it.
And
because everything else we already know from the previous issue. They kidnapped the Gwen body. We already knew all this stuff, but the new stuff is just 2 sentences.
All right, James. So, do you give this issue a thumbs up, a thumbs sideways, or a thumbs down? Thumbs sideways. All right.
Because it's nothing. There's nothing to hate, but there's nothing to like either. It's just, yeah.
I have to agree with James on that, because it's like, I read this issue and I didn't think it was terrible, but I didn't love it either. It was like, I walked away from it and I was like, okay, can I remember anything that I just read? Not really, because I don't really care about it that much. It's like, okay, Kane has the Kane is clone degenerating. He goes around to a lot of different worlds. It's like, this is Spider-Verse all over it. Like, this is reminding me of, like, this is almost kind of reminding me of those extra Superior Spider-Man issues that they put out when Spider-Verse was happening. When Otto was jumping through the universes trying to find Spider-Man or whatever. He's investigating like the dead Spider-Man and the Inheritors and stuff. When Kane's jumping through universes here, that's what that reminds me of. Like, I almost feel like I've read this kind of issue before from the same writer, and it's just like, that was something that was really noticeable to me. Is like, I've read this story before almost, and also, you know, Kane and Spider-Gwen, they are taking up a lot of focus in this book or in this story, because it's like, we talked on the last episode about how jarring the abrupt presence of Spider-Gwen was in the last issue, and again, they're taking a lot of the spotlight here, and it's showing that they're setting up Kane and Spider-Gwen to be the main heroes of this story, when this is Peter Parker's title. This is an Amazing Spider-Man title, and why is Peter Parker needing to be saved from himself? So you know what? That was a pretty big con. The artwork by Cam McCauley, Smith, Poggi, and Keith, all of this stuff is pretty good. The artwork is very much on point, but they deliver pretty consistently good artwork. So that's almost to be expected at this point. I will say that I didn't think the overall narrative of the story was terrible. I just didn't think it was very memorable. You know, I have a feeling that I'm going to have a lot more to say when Clone Conspiracy number 3 comes out in 2-3 weeks. I think that's when it comes out. So I have a feeling that I'm going to be expanding upon a lot of my feelings more when that issue comes out, because that's going to be like a big turning point from what we hear. And so right now, it almost feels like we're, it's just holding us over until the next installment of the main story. And so I give this issue with them sideways as well. It's like, it's not a terrible comic, but there's stuff in it to not like. Definitely, there's stuff in it to like. I'll give it that, but it's forgettable. Like, you walk away from it 5 minutes later, you don't even remember what you read, because it's just like, you didn't really care that much. So I think that's the main thing I have to say about this issue. It's just forgettable. That's the main thing I'd probably have to say about it.
When you go down the history of Amazing Spider-Man, where everybody goes, name your favorite issues, name most memorable moments, I can guarantee you not one thing from this issue is going to be named off ever as a memorable moment in the history of Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that, because it's like, also, like James mentioned, this is a tie-in to the main Spider-Man story in Amazing Spider-Man that's not even in Amazing Spider-Man, because this Amazing Spider-Man title, the flagship book of Marvel, has above it a Clone Conspiracy tie-in. And I'm just like...
Because it's its own event comic. This is the problem that I don't blame Slott. I blame Marvel for. Because this has been Marvel's MO for the last, 6 years now? Since Siege? That every night, it's like, oh, we got to have this event. But then for the characters that aren't in this event, we need to have Shadowland. And we'll put all of them in Shadowland. And for the Ultimate characters, we have to give them an ultimatum or an ultimate this event. And then 3 months later, we need another Avengers event. Well, now the X-Men don't have an event. So let's throw the X-Men and the Avengers in an event. It's to the point that Marvel Comics is just event. What is their storylines now? Events. And now it's to the point, what's the main storyline in Amazing Spider-Man? An event comic.
All right, but that is pretty much going to do it for ASM Volume 4, number 21. There wasn't a whole lot to talk about with that issue. Again, we don't have Clone Conspiracy number 3 until December, which is still quite a ways away. So we're gonna have to wait on that. And there aren't any more issues of Amazing Spider-Man coming out this month. So we thought instead of just having a really short episode tonight, we would tackle some classic issues, and we'll also be doing classic issues for the next couple of weeks without an Amazing Spider-Man title to talk about. And so this week we're actually redoing an episode that we did 3 or 4 weeks ago that we tried that we did with the old Google Hangout format that was never uploaded because Google lost the episode. And so we're redoing it. And this time, James and I, for the second time, we're talking about the first 4 issues of Mark Millar's Marvel Knights Spider-Man run. But this run, it started in late 2004, I want to say. Ran for
mid 2004, I want to say, mid to late.
Yeah, mid to late 2004. This was Marvel cashing in on their big Marvel Knights brand at the time. They'd done it with pretty much every hero. They'd done it with, off the top of my head, Daredevil.
It's when Marvel Knights jumped the shark. Because Marvel Knights went from literally being the book where it's like, Marvel Knights was kind of like, okay, if you think about it, the main Marvel 616 books, they were the PG books, okay? They were not really, but they were more kind of like for teenagers, but let's just say it's the PG. It's some of the general audiences everybody can read, fun for the whole family. Then you had Max, who were the 18 plus X-rated, R-rating, and then Marvel Knights was kind of the PG-13 middle place. And that's where you got your Luke Cages, and you got your, Punishers, and you got your Daredevils, and your Moon Knights, and your Ghost Riders, and your Howard the Ducks. They were all put into the PG-13 Marvel Knights. But they used to be kind of like, okay, because they're Marvel Knights, they were the lesser selling titles. They're the ones that were going to throw them more on the bone that they critically acclaim, or the celebrity who wants to be a writer in comics will throw them on a Marvel Knights title for like a little while. And then they'll be over there. They're still part of continuity, but they're all the Hell's Kitchens and, the small street-level guys, so it's not going to affect the mainstream continuity. And then once those books started to sell and the main editor from them, Joe Quesada, became the editor-in-chief of all of Marvel, all of a sudden, everybody got a Marvel Knights title. Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Wolverine, the X-Men, Fantastic Four, which is one of the worst Marvel Knights titles ever. Want to read some of the worst comics you'll read? Read Marvel Knights 4. That is one of the worst runs in comics history. And then Spider-Man got one too, and this is it.
But, so they brought in Mark Millar and Terry Dodson as the main creative team on these. It was a 12-issue run that Mark Millar did. It was broken down into 3 separate story arcs of 4 issues each that compiled itself into one 12-issue mega arc, I guess you could call it. But
it was their Hush. Like, if anybody read Batman Hush storyline that came out around the same time, this was Marvel's answer to it.
Yeah, literally.
Let's do a Spider-Man book where it's all 1 year. It's a 1 year long storyline, and it has all the heavy hitters when it comes to characters in it.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that there are noticeable similarities between this and Batman Hush. So we'll dive right into it. Marvel Knights Spider-Man number 1 through 4. That's what we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to split it up into 2 segments of 2 issues each. I'll be doing the first 2. But creators, we got writer Mark Millar, penciler Terry Dodson, inker Rachel Dodson, colorist Avalon's Ian Hennon, letters VC's Corey Petit, assistant editor Warren Simmons, and editor Axel Alonso. I'm using the Marvel Knights Spider-Man trade for this, so I don't have the actual single issues. But starting off, Marvel Knights Spider-Man #1, a really good cover by Terry Dodson, Rachel Dodson, and what's the other guy's name down there? Brian Haberlin. Really nice front and back cover. Really good. But the issue starts, because this is 2004 when this was published, it was a different time. But one thing that remains consistent throughout all of history is that conspiracy theories always exist. And we start Marvel Knights Spider-Man with the guy going on about how DVDs are the modern like scam conspiracy or whatever to like separate people from their money and to just rip everybody off. And so we get literally a page of this guy just going on and on about DVDs and how like they're the worst thing to hit the market ever. And so this guy's like a deli store worker or whatever. And so the other guy who he's talking to, he's taking out the trash, and he goes to dump it in the pile, but he sees a guy lying there, and what do you know? It's Spider-Man. Spider-Man is lying in the trash, and the guy is understandably freaked out by this. He calls his DVD skeptic buddy, and he's like, "Hey, bro, come check this out. Get back in the store. Close the doors." What? Spider-Man's trying to tell them to get away, and just at that moment, the Green Goblin shows up behind them and starts attacking them. Spider-Man manages to push them out of the way, and he and Goblin engage in a pretty violent fight across the city. They're crashing into buildings, going through windows. You know, all the stuff that superheroes and superhumans usually do in this universe. And so Spider-Man manages to knock him off his glider, knock him to the ground, and he's looking around for something heavy. The mailbox, Spider-Man! Hit him with the mailbox! And so Spider-Man takes the advice of the onlooker and crushes him with a mailbox. Like, look at that! It's like, jeez! Like, man, what James was saying about how this was, you know, the more violent PG-13 book, yeah, I could see that. So Spider-Man webs Osborn up for the police. He leaves him there. And during the fight, he'd been expositing how Norman had lured him to a church full of hostages because he wanted to basically, you know, he wanted to beat Spider-Man, but Spider-Man managed to stop Norman and all that stuff. So Spidey swings away, and the onlookers are like, "Dude, why'd you hit him with a mailbox like that?" "Because you told me to, jackass." But you look like you gave him brain damage." "Shut up." And so he goes back to
It's the Parker log. The people are telling him what to use to save them, but the second he does it, they're like, "You're a menace because you gave this guy a concussion."
Yeah, so Peter takes a cab back to Forest Hills where Aunt May and Mary Jane are there to greet him. He goes to the sink, he throws up, and Aunt May's like, "Oh my god, is it bad? Should we take him to the hospital?" "No, it's okay. He's tougher than he looks. All he needs is some painkillers and a chance to let his body fix itself up again. What's the strongest thing you've got?" I think I've got some Tylenol in here, but I could run down to the drugstore if he needs anything stronger." "No, just give me the Tylenol. Tylenol's fine, but I'm going to need a dozen of them. I always need half the bottle when it's this bad." And Aunt May's like, "But it says on the bottle you're only supposed to take 2 every 4 hours." But, you know, Peter takes half the bottle because he's Spider-Man and he can, you know, anything less than it has no effect on him. So basically, he's explaining everything that went down in the fight, and Aunt May's like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot to set the recorder. I always record the news footage whenever my nephew's on there." And so they eventually start explaining about how Peter and Mary Jane are going to be moving Aunt May out of the house and into an apartment in Manhattan, and we see we see some moments of Peter helping Aunt May pack up the house. And we get a look at Peter's old bedroom, which has some nice Easter eggs in it, like a Spider-Mobile, a living brain. There's actually a pumpkin up there, which is like, that's kind of a weird thing to have on your desk. Or
the living brain one's weird, but in retrospective.
On your shelf, Peter. He's also got a spider coffee mug. I don't know if you could see that, but there's a coffee mug with spiders on it. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, so they're going through all that. But as this is happening, there's a strange guy hanging from a branch in a tree outside. But the next day at school, Peter is in class, and basically he's learning that 2004, being a teacher kind of sucks because that's when your students could start Googling you. And so they found like all this information on Peter, and he's just like, my gosh.
It's an info dump for new readers. Let's just say that. It's an info dump for new readers that they were hoping to get with this title.
Yeah, but so he's pulled away from it by someone coming in and saying, basically saying there's a telephone call for him. And it turns out that it's some guy informing him that his Uncle Ben's grave was vandalized, and so he goes out there, he sees it, and they explain to him that, it happens all the time, but it's unusual for people to just single out one specific headstone, so they're not really quite sure what was happening. But at that moment, Peter gets a call. Peter gets a call on his cell phone. So Peter gets a call on his cell phone. He thinks it's his Aunt May, so he goes, Aunt May? Not even close, Spider-Man. Nice job finally bringing in the Green Goblin, by the way. But how much of a nerve does that shyster have charging you with aggravated assault, huh? You know society's going down the drain when they can't even tell between deranged criminal sociopaths and altruistic super hobbyists. I'm sorry, I think you've made a mistake here. Oh, please, let's be adult about this, Parker. Wasn't defiling your uncle's grave enough? Do I really have to do something truly awful here? What do you want? I just want you to realize how bad things can get very, very quickly when something as simple as your real name falls into the wrong hands, Spider-Man. What are you talking about? Care for a wheat cake, sweetie? And so Peter takes off. He swings through the city to Aunt May's new apartment in his civilian clothes. He gets there. He crashes through the window looking for Aunt May. He sees that the apartment is trashed and Aunt May is gone. Dun, dun, dun. And that ends issue 1. But as we move into issue 2 here, the issue 2 begins with Peter desperately trying to convince Mary Jane to get out of town for a while so she doesn't get killed. Because Peter's like, hey, I've had a girlfriend who's gotten killed before. Can you please not end up like her? Thanks.
I love how you make it sound.
It's like,
honey, I had a girlfriend who died. You don't want to die, do you? Bye. Doesn't make Peter sound like a creep at all.
It's just like he doesn't want his wife to get hurt, so he sends her away. He calls into the school. He tells them that he's not going to be coming in for a couple of weeks, and he's desperately trying to figure out how to find Aunt May. He calls Felicia Hardy, the black cat, but she says that, she
calls her and says, I had a girlfriend who died once, and we used to be lovers, so bye. And then he picks up the phone, does it again to Betty, and then he does it to Sissy Ironwood, then he does it to
Deb Whitman,
and then he calls Carly Cooper somehow and says, we're going to date one in the future, but I had a girlfriend who died on a bridge once, bye. And then he goes on for the future girlfriends that he has now or will have. Like, what's her name from Parker Industries? They all get the phone call, and they're like, who the fuck is this guy?
So Felicia says she can't help him, but she's like, who knows your secret identity right now, Peter? Oh my god, Osborn. So Peter goes to visit Norman in jail, and I just want to read this entire conversation verbatim. What have you done with her, Osborn? Security? It seems we have a breach at cell 45. He's on a toilet break. Now answer the question before I kick my way in there and break your neck, man. What the hell have you done with her? I'm sorry, Peter, but I'm afraid you'll have to spit those words out a little more specifically. What have you done with my Aunt May? She's disappeared? Now that's interesting. And you're assuming, of course, that someone in the super criminal community is behind it. Wouldn't that be funny? That would mean Uncle Ben and Aunt May's blood would be all over those cobweb little hands. Not to mention the dead blonde you used to dance with, eh, Parker? Shut up and tell me where she is, Osborn. Or just shut up and tell me where she is, Osborn. Oh, surely you aren't accusing me of this, boy. I understand you're in a fragile place right now and probably not thinking clearly, but I'm hardly in a position to kidnap anyone, even an old lady who reeks of ammonia. Unless, of course, I shared our little secret with a mutual acquaintance. What? Oh, surely you didn't think I'd always be a nice guy and keep your street name to myself, did you? It's pretty obvious what's happened here. I just told a friend that if you ever succeeded in tossing me in jail, I wanted him to kidnap, torture, and execute your oldest living relative. It's nothing personal, of course. I just have to keep my grisly reputation up to speed with all the other little lunatics who are crawling out of the woodwork these days. What? Then again, there's an excellent chance that I'm just taking advantage of a good boy in a bad situation. You know, telling lies to make this all the more painful for you, Parker. Oh, this is funny. I could keep this up all night. I really could. When I look at you these days, I can't even tell if you're wearing your mask anymore, Osborn. And when I look at you, I see an itsy-bitsy spider that doesn't know where to turn. Happy hunting, little man. And so then we cut to the camera room, or the monitor room, or whatever, and the guard is coming. The guard's standing there. And so Norman looks right up at the security camera in his room. And he drops probably the best Norman line in the history of comics. Enjoy your leak, Officer Jankowitz.
The best part was this line that I brought up the first time we did this episode is the Green Goblin just told this guy, enjoying your leak, and he probably never told anybody he was going to the bathroom, so he's probably went to sleep for like the next couple of months, freaking the fuck out, like, how does Osborn know I went to the bathroom? Is he going to kill me?
I'm sorry if I was like laughing through that whole speech that I was quoting, but I was remembering that line was coming up, and I started laughing.
I was laughing too, but I was laughing because of some of the things people were saying about Dino Charge.
Aw, James. But so Spider-Man swings away, and he's like, "Man, I can't believe that guy." So he decides to head over to Avengers Mansion because he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna go talk to Captain America about this." And so he knocks on the front door or whatever. Hello? I need to speak to Captain America, please. Certainly, sir. Do you have an appointment to see him? Well, no, not exactly, but it's really urgent. I've got a serious situation here. I need some heavy-duty help. And whom should I say is at the door? Just tell him it's Spider-Man. The Amazing Spider-Man? Yeah, listen, I know you must have idiots showing up and doing this all the time, but it really is me, Jarvis. Could you hit the buzzer and let me in? I'm getting soaked out here. Well, if it's really such a downpour, sir, why don't you just web yourself up a little Spider-Man umbrella? Jarvis, please, don't make me do this the hard way. Just tell Cap to come out. You don't even need to let me in. Good night, young sir. I hope your frat house friends find this all a little more amusing than those security people making their way heading towards you.
Okay, that line always be funny. Does that mean that the Avengers have killed a lot of drunken teenagers that pulled pranks?
I assume that they just they escorted them off of their like property or whatever.
No, you see them coming in guns ablazing at Spider-Man. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. Like they're ready to shoot. It seems like.
I don't know, but Spider-Man's like wonderful. Maybe if I was naked, this could be a little more embarrassing. So Tony Stark is like talking to a photographer or whatever, and this is back when Tony was still Secretary of Defense. So they're
or disassemble.
Yeah. So he gets word that Spider-Man's on the premises, and so the security guards are like, "Oh, Mr. Secretary, we have to get you out of here. As long as you're not in your Iron Man armor, you're under SHIELD jurisdiction. We're taking you to the nearest panic room, sir." What's going on, boys? Who is it? We don't know, sir, but my God, it's through the mansion's primary defenses and it's making its way down to level 2. Control's saying we're safe for taking the back stairs. Come on! And so Spider-Man basically manages to get through Hawkeye and all of them, but he's taken down by Quicksilver. And so Quicksilver is like, now give me one good reason why I should pull this punch, you sweaty little urchin. Because I didn't come here looking for a fight. All I did was show my face and those idiots started shooting at me, Quicksilver. I need to speak to Captain America. Some supervillains figured out who I am, and he's already kidnapped one of my family. Don't you get it? Stand down, Pietro. Let's hear what this gentleman has to say before things get any more out of hand. And so Spider-Man's like, listen, Cap, I really need to talk to Nick Fury. It's urgent. Is this something we can help you with, Spider-Man? Nick's in a parallel dimension for the next 7 days and can't get a signal on his cell phone. And Spider-Man's like, well, Fury already knows my secret identity, and, it's a little less complicated. You could just tell us your secret identity. I can't do that. Why not? Because I can't. Why not?
Because Bendis will kill me if we do it this early before he can do it in New Avengers.
Yeah, that's basically the reason. Tony's like, why are you keeping your identity a secret? It's so much easier being out in the public. And Steve Rogers is like, it's actually really liberating not living two separate lives. If you take that mask off, it'll probably be a good thing. And so basically Spider-Man acts like an idiot and runs off. And because he's like, you know what? Screw all you guys. I'd rather let my aunt die than take my mask off for you. But he goes off and he's like, the truth. He thinks to himself, the truth is, being around super jocks just makes me feel like I'm back in high school again and looking at everyone through thick glass lenses. Why am I only truly comfortable when I'm surrounding myself with freaks? So who does Spider-Man go to visit after he goes to see the Avengers?
Supervillain?
He goes to the Owl.
Yeah, he's more trusting the Avengers. That's bullshit.
So he basically says, you know what, Owl? I need information on this woman. And you're, with the Kingpin out of commission, you're like the big crime guy in New York right now. And why exactly should I help you, Spider-Man? This isn't a charitable trust I'm running here. Because I'll owe you, Owl. And for a fat little man with his eye on the Kingpin's empire, that's worth a lot more than some dusty old rejects from a wine collection. Wait here while I make a few calls. And so Owl comes back and says that Vulture and Electro have taken Aunt May. And obviously this is BS, but Peter falls for it. And so we cut to Adrian Toomes and Max Dillon going to the club. And basically they've hired some escorts who are going to show them a good time. And this is where Max Dillon decides to get a little eccentric with a shapeshifter. And she's like, would you like to make love to Sue Storm? Or Wanda Maximoff? Or Marina from Atlantis? But before Max can make a decision on who he wants to make love to, Spider-Man shows up in the room that they'd rented out. Oops, sorry to spoil the party, Romeo. And that ends issue 2. So, James, I'm going to let you go first. What do you think of the first 2 issues of Marvel Knights Spider-Man?
They're really good. It's a really good Spider-Man. This is when I first got into comics. Literally, this is right when I started to pick up comics. I picked up Marvel Knights when it was first coming out. And it's a good book. It's a good series. And these first 2 issues are really good. There's some problems, because for one thing, it's... Okay, there's more information that I have found out recently from reading across the internet. Marvel Knights was not ever... It's this weird thing. Marvel Knights was going to be a storyline that was going to be like their version of Hush, but Marvel Knights was going to be JMS's title. Kevin Smith was going to write... They were going to switch Kevin Smith because they wanted a big name on Amazing, so they were going to put Kevin Smith on Amazing, then they were going to move all of JMS's storylines to Marvel Knights. But then Kevin Smith fell apart, whatever, for a reason. I think it was because The Evil That Men Do Black Cat storyline he was doing was critically acclaimed and panned. So they said, okay, you're not going to write Spider-Man after all because your test on it didn't work well. And so Marvel Knights became its own book, and they kept JMS on Amazing. And because of that, they put Mark Millar on this. And Mark Millar made a storyline that was really hard now to fit into continuity. And so you got some of that here, like Aunt May's moving out of the house, where no other Spider-Man book is saying she's moving out. And there's other weird continuity things, like Norman gets arrested here, but Bendis at the same time is writing him being arrested in the Jessica Jones title that's going on at the time. It's also writing the storyline, and because Bendis is writing the whole Marvel universe, that becomes the canon version of it. So you got Norman getting arrested 2 different times now around the same time. It's just weird. But besides that stuff, it's still really good. The first issue, I really like how it was handled, how it really introduced the role of Spider-Man, but they did it in a really creative way. With Mary Jane, going over how Peter has to take painkillers because even though he has a healing factor, it still hurts and stuff like that. And so you get kind of that expedition with Aunt May worrying about him and Mary May telling him MJ saying it's gonna be okay and this is why this power reacts this way and that power is this and and then you got the kids in the school with the whole he's married to a hot redhead. No, she's dead. No, they got divorced. No, they're back together. Like stuff like that. It was like you're too close to going. No, it was his blonde girlfriend who died. Just like his uncle, and then they would go like I was expecting more of the kids just like throwing Parker Luck after Parker Luck at Peter's face, but it doesn't go that far. It just stops at Mary Jane. So that's really good. And I like how it sets up the mystery that kind of ties into the early Amazing Spider-Man issues around issue 20, especially when you find out who this mystery man is. So it's kind of cool. It ties all the way back to the original ASM issues. About issue 2. The Avengers fight. It's like John said, it's weird that but this is kind of in character, especially with Post One More Day. Peter is very much, I will let the world burn because I'm so goddamn paranoid about my secret identity. Because this is the same guy who back during the Ditko days said, if Peter Parker was in the same room with a spider crawling on the wall in the classroom, people would guess I'm Spider-Man. Because he said that. He goes, they were talking about spiders in a science book, and he goes, I can't tell them I'm interested in spiders, or they'll find out I'm Spider-Man. No, because nerdy fucking Peter Parker can't say he's interested in spiders, Peter, without people thinking you're Spider-Man. So he's always been that really weird and paranoid. So that doesn't bother me. And another thing that doesn't really bother me that much is because I think what ends up happening in issues 3 and 4 here, where Owl, spoiler alerts, fucks him over. I think this is where he goes, I should have trusted the Avengers. Next time, I'm going to do things differently, and that's him demasking in front of them and them learning the secret in New Avengers. Like, he learns the lesson from here that in New Avengers is why he's open to them about his secret identity. But even then, he's always like, Peter, we need you to demask so we don't get killed because we got a baby here with Luke Cage and Jessica Jones' child. Okay. Next issue, oh, I can't believe I took off my mask for you guys, so now I gotta continue wearing my mask. Then what was the point of you? Okay, whatever.
All right, James, but
the artwork's excellent. The artwork has always been really great.
So do you give it a thumbs up, a thumbs sideways, or a thumbs down? All right, thumbs up. I agree with James. Thumbs up from me as well. Really, really good issues. I don't know if I've said this anywhere before, but this run, this 12-issue Marvel Knights run, is actually one of my favorite Spider-Man stories of all time. I don't know if it's like, I don't know where I would rank it, but it's like, this whole trade, this 12-issue run, is a trade of Spider-Man that I can just sit down and read, and it's really, really good. Like, there is a lot of great character stuff in here. Spider-Man is written so well. A lot of characters are written just absolutely on point. The action is really good. I mean, the opening fight between Spider-Man and the Goblin is just brutal. I mean, you can feel the punches emanating off the page, and that's thanks to Terry Dodson. I mean, he does a great job with that. When you see Spider-Man, what are you laughing at?
Sorry, go on. I apologize.
I don't even want to know what he was laughing at. But when Spider-Man crushes the Goblin with the mailbox, I'm like, Jesus! Like, you didn't really need to hurt him that much, Peter. Well, okay, maybe he kind of...
The guy killed his girlfriend, he deserved it.
I was going to say, like, maybe he did kind of deserve that, but it's like... But it's just like, it's violent. That's what the Marvel Knights whole thing was about. But, yeah, so there is all of that stuff. The plot with Aunt May being kidnapped and Peter desperately trying to save her, it's like, Peter desperately trying to save Aunt May, that's not an original storyline for Spider-Man to do, but the way Mark Millar writes this is very charming. The way he constructs the mystery, the way he structures it and deals with the whole idea of it is really interesting in my opinion. And plus, the dialogue is really good and really natural. The artwork, like James said, is really on point. I love the scene at the beginning of issue 2 where Peter tries to send Mary Jane away because he's like, hey, do you remember how my last girlfriend, died because I was Spider-Man? Yeah, I'd rather not have a repeat of that, so I'm going to send you away now. And so, I liked all of that stuff. I like how Peter was actually trying to maintain a sense of calm throughout this because he knew that if he panicked, he'd be no use to anybody. The jail cell conversation between Peter and Norman Osborn is just like, that's Norman being Norman. Like, that is some really, really good Norman writing. And of course, the whole line of "enjoy your leak, Officer Jankowitz" is just so funny. I don't know why it is. Like, I feel immature saying that, but it's hilarious to me. I really love that scene with well, maybe not so much the entire scene itself, but the line afterwards, after the whole scene between Spider-Man and the Avengers, where he says, the truth is that being around super jocks just makes me feel like I'm back in high school again and looking at everyone through thick glass lenses. I really like that because I feel like that sums up Spider-Man's place in the superhero community pretty well. I feel like that's where he's always kind of been. It's like, they respect him, they honestly do, but he doesn't feel like he's on their level.
It depends. Like, Iron Man respects him to the point that he wanted him to be his second in commander in Civil War. Cap definitely respects him. Daredevil respects him. But then you got people like Clint Barton, who, if you read back in New Avengers, was kind of a dick to Spider-Man. Your girlfriend died and you don't want us to murder Norman? No, because I don't kill people. Well, you suck. You should quit the team. Like, there's other people where, like, they don't respect him, you get a feeling, but yet the big hitters, they do.
Yeah, it's like, you can tell that a lot of people really respect Spider-Man, but it's like he doesn't have that self-respect or that self-confidence.
He's like the unofficial member of the fifth member of the Fantastic Four in their eyes.
Yeah. But, so I really liked that scene. I thought it summed up Spider-Man's place in the superhero community pretty well. The only thing I had a problem with was Spider-Man actually believing the Owl's bullshit. Like, are you kidding me?
He's desperate. I get it. Like, that's the thing I get. You're desperate. But this is kind of similar to One More Day, where it's like, Peter, you're making all the wrong choices to save Aunt May.
It's just like, I don't feel like Peter Parker would believe the Owl. I really don't. I don't think that.
John, he trusted an even more evil person, the devil, when this happened to Aunt May again.
Yeah, true. So, who knows? But overall, like, that's just one con out of, like, against several other pros. This gets a thumbs up from me. Really, really good 2 issues. A really solid start to this storyline. So, James, I'm going to ask you to continue moving on with this story arc. Marvel Knights Spider-Man number 3 and 4, Down Among the Dead Men, parts 3 and 4. So, James, what happens in these other 2 issues?
It begins with the title that I'm going to call this, Down Amongst the Dead, Part 3. Subtitle, How Electro Got His Kinky Groove Back.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Because the issue begins with them at a bar, and he's about to have sex with an inhuman or a mutant chick who has, like, shape-shifting abilities. And she's like, so who do you want to bang this night? Susan Storm of the Fantastic Four, Scarlet Witch. I heard disassembling is really popular right now. Or Jessica Drew, or Jessica Jones, or just insert female character in the Marvel Universe here. And then he's like, actually in prison, you see a lot of things, and I want you to change it to something else. So they're really insinuating, like, gay undertones, I guess. And then, sure enough, he closes the door, and not you, it's Spider-Man in the room, and it starts a big superhero brawl as Spider-Man, him and Vulture are fighting, and it gets really, really violent as they're fighting, and all this stuff's happening. He's all like, where's Aunt May? Where is she? Where is she? I'm Homer Simpson! I'm Homer Simpson! That's a Simpson reference for people that don't get it from Who Shot Mr. Burns. Where Homer's shaking Mr. Burns, and Mr. Burns doesn't know who the fuck is doing it while he's yelling, I'm Homer Simpson. I just imagine that's Peter doing that to Vulture, and Vulture is the old man, is Mr. Burns. He's like, who the fuck are you? Because that's what's going on here. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Where is she? Where is she? Why do I sound like Batman? Where is she?
Where's Martha?
Actually, I was making a Dark Knight reference, but okay. Go like 3 other Batman movies later. So anyways, yeah, he's shaking up. They're like, we don't have the fucking clue what you're talking about. And then super electric fights that causes critical damage. And Spider-Man's hurt, but they're injured too a little bit. And then Peter realizes, I just trusted the Owl. Probably not the smartest thing for me to do. Next time I'm in this situation, I'm calling Mephisto.
And the next time I'm in this situation, I'm calling the Jackal.
So yeah, he's in the hospital without his mask on because the mask fell out during the fight and stuff like that, and he's looking for help. And the doctors are all really super serious and nice about, no, he's our patient. He's just a guy who's in here. Forget that he's Spider-Man. Don't take a picture of his face. Don't try to look up any identification in his wallet. We're taking care of Spider-Man. We're respecting his right to be a masked vigilante. And then one nurse is like, fuck your shit, because she ends up being Bart Hamilton's ex-wife. But no, she, of course, takes the photo, and she forms all the news outlets that have breaking news, Spider-Man unmasked in a hospital somewhere, because that's a really important thing to do. That's like if, God forbid, something happened to a celebrity or, a world leader or whatever, or someone who's big and important. They will not tell you, breaking news, they're after being hurt and the fugitives are still at large. They're at this hospital in this exact room. That's the worst goddamn news team in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that'd probably break a few, ethics or whatever.
Like, if it's Jonah, that's one thing. Because he hates Spider-Man. But it's every news outlet in New York saying, Spider-Man got attacked by 2 supervillains. And if they're still in large, he's in this room. Go blow up a hospital. That's basically what they're saying right now. And that's basically what happens. Mary Jane sees it on the TV and realizes she has to go smack a bitch, so she flies out and she beats a chilly girl in an epic cat fight, which makes John not realize it's sarcasm, and he gets all freaked out that I'm not telling what actually happened in the story, but fuck him, I don't care.
Okay, I just need to give context for this. The last time we did this episode, James went on this whole tangent about how Mary...
I made my own fanfic, B plot that's going on, side story with Mary Jane.
And I was like, James, that doesn't happen in the comic, what are you talking about? And James is like, it's sarcasm, John, you're an idiot.
Well, because it's obviously sarcasm. Would you notice that I'm going to the part that Mary Jane has a mud wrestling cat fight with the nurse in the middle of the hallway? You think that should tip you off that maybe he's bullshitting?
Alright, James, but just get back to the issues. What actually happens?
Well, Mary Jane is busy mud fighting and cat fighting in a steel cage match against the other nurse. And while that's happening, Mary Jane wakes up, but she realizes it was all a dream, except for the part about Peter being unmasked in the hospital and all that stuff. Vulture also sees the news, and he goes, yep, I'm gonna go fuck some shit, because he's also related to Bart Hamilton now, headcanon. So Vulture goes flying to go get Spider-Man, and the issue ends with Vulture there in his badass Marvel Knight / Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon, red and black costume, which is awesome and badass, and he should have worn more than just his arc. And he's snapping a neck. He doesn't really in this issue the next issue, but he kills the nurse, because Marvel Knights had an underfinding theme. You find out Spider-Man's secret, and you're not somebody who already knew, you're dead.
Alright, James, but as we move from issue 3 to issue 4, what goes on in that issue, James?
Well, like I said, Vulture's doing shit. He's standing there, he's getting ready to kill Spider-Man. He snaps the neck of the nurse, like I said, because he's a fun guy. That's what he does for fun. He goes, and Spider-Man's all beaten and no, this is shitty. Fuck you. And I gotta remind you, this is going on at the same time as Sin's Past, which also had a storyline with Peter Parker being in a hospital bed while a supervillain broke in and caused more damage in a fight. This is literally happening in the same months. So that's what I mean by Marvel Knights being fuck it when it came to continuity. So yeah, he takes Spider-Man off, and he goes to drop him off a building, but not before revealing some of the most fucked up Parker luck in the history of comics. Peter Parker is going to get killed by the Vulture because Peter Parker allowed a kid with an incurable brain tumor to die because the Vulture was going to use the money to save his grandson's life.
Well, that sucks. It's one of those rare moments where you're like, Peter, did you have to stop them? Did you absolutely have to?
He didn't know That's like a cop finding out a year later that the reason why this guy robbed a bank in real life is because his kid had an incurable disease, and the cop feeling bad. I mean, it's something like, well, you still broke the law, and I didn't know at the time. It still sucks that this kid's gonna die, but was I really in the wrong for trying to take you in for stolen money? It was stolen mob money because they stole it from Owl, but still. Oh, so he gets dropped. So Vulture's like, Spider-Man's like, let me go. He's like, poor choice of words as he drops Spider-Man. Not really, but so that's basically the whole cliches of movies when that scene happens. So he falls, and he's gonna die, and because he's injured and has no web shooters. But who saves him? But his ex Lava, Black Cat, and she goes back to the Parker house and nurses him back to health. Because she was actually hired by the Owl to track Electro and Vulture. So it's weird how this part is kind of weird. I still try to make sense of it. Because their excuse is, well, I was hired to take them out by the Owl. But Peter was on the phone with her earlier, and she was doing Guantanamo Bay waterboarding on somebody. Now, was that somebody who knew where Vulture and them were? And that's how Owl got off the phone call? He was with Black Cat? Is that what they're trying to say?
I'm not entirely sure. It's like, I assume that Black Cat and Owl were like working in cahoots, like more in the background than we were actually shown. And so
that's what I got the opinion. She called after the waterboarding thing. She got the information where they're at, and then he told Spider-Man.
I'd say that's probably what happened. I'd say that's
because either that or it was just Mark Millar looking for another commentary on George W. Bush. Because he didn't do enough of that in his his Ultimates run and his Civil War run.
I was going to say, or in Civil War.
Yeah, Mark Millar. The worst, though, is, like I said, Ultimates. Because I wasn't a George Bush. I was a teenager in the early 2000s. I was all into the American Idiot, George W. Bush stuff. So I'm not one to talk when Civil War, all this stuff is coming out. But the best is in Ultimates 1, where they play him off as this idiot, where he's the President of the United States when Cap gets on fall. He's like, so, you're alive this whole time. Isn't that cool? What? Man? Like, they're trying to make him sound like he's, like, Mr. Cool and hip. And it's clearly just Mark Millar giving commentary about how dumb George W. Bush is. But say, look at him. He's trying to talk like he's a hip young kid. Man, he's the president. He's stupid. And it's, like, really weird when you look back at it now. It's like, you're the guy who wrote Civil War. And now I get why.
Yeah, it's just comic writers trying to put political commentary into their stories.
Yeah, and so next we see that, Electro is being tortured by the Owl's goon, who pull his fucking eyeball out, because Marvel Knights, and again, it's hard to put in continuity, where just a few months later, Electro is breaking out supervillains in the rafts and New Avengers, and he has both eyes.
Because why not? Like, I think James made a pretty good analogy the last time we did this episode, which you people did not see, but he said that if this was the MCU, this Marvel Knights stuff would be the Netflix shows of like the Marvel Comics universe.
Yeah, they happen, but if they don't fit, shut the fuck up, who cares? They're Marvel Knights, they're not Marvel. But they're in continuity and they fit and they're in the same universe. But this doesn't tie into anything and it doesn't fit. It does. It works. Just works. It's like The Purge. It's like the movie The Purge, where they're always like, The Purge works. No, it's not. It works. Our movie plot, it works. Just ignore it. That's basically what Marvel Knights was for a lot of titles. Like, Fantastic Four was bad, even worse than Spider-Man got.
All right, James, but how does the issue end?
You mean after the Electro eyeball thing?
Yeah.
Well, then we see a couple of, stuff, going on with Mary Jane flying home and, her being worried about Peter. You got Black Cat trying to nurse her former lover back to health and all that stuff. You see the bad guy, in the shadow, the mystery man who's all like, he's watching the news and see what's going on. And he's like, this is totally my fault. Awesome! He doesn't really say that, but what he's thinking. And then it ends with Jonah, like, seeing the photos from the nurse of Spider-Man, and he goes, wait a second. I recognize that bandaged up man with barely a little bit of stuff. He's familiar. And it sets up one of the goddamn worst plot lines that go nowhere because of Marvel Knights and Marvel history.
It's so
Spoiler
hilarious.
alert! Peter convinces him using Photoshop and doctored photos that it's his son John Jameson who's been Spider-Man this whole time, which makes no sense with issue 1 of Amazing Spider-Man, or all the times that John Jameson has attacked Spider-Man as Man-Wolf. And Jonah believes him. And for the rest of Mark Miller's Marvel Knights run, Jonah's an activist as pro Spider-Man. But in none of the other books, they touch upon that, and he still hates Spider-Man. And Civil War, you're just supposed to pretend like, oh, he lied to me that it was my son, even though you didn't fucking believe it in any other title. But Miller put that in Civil War because it's his own book, and he can finally tie it in together. Even though JMS's Run or Nothing, or Paul Jenkins' Spectacular / Peter Parker Spider-Man run doesn't touch that at all.
James, what's worse, that plot or the Dino Charge finale?
They're both bad. It's like Dino Charge one. It's fresh. It's a fresh one, John.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I'll
But
go.
no, this thing was stupid. It's something that Mark Miller did here that no other Marvel writer touched on a 50-foot pole, and then he calls back to it in Civil War when Peter unmasks. Because there's a one-off line by Jonah in there where in the actual Civil War book, I think, and he actually does say, "It's not John," or it's something like, "He lied to me," and it's like you're supposed to insinuate it's going back here in the Marvel Knights, and it's like, but no other fucking book touched the Marvel Knights thing, so that was pointless, except for the fact that you're both the same writer.
All right, I'll go first with my thoughts on this issue, on these two issues. Again, I really like them. Issue 3 has a really good fight between Spider-Man and Electro. Really intense. There's a lot of great artwork from the Dodsons and Ian Hinnon. Just seeing how Electro just basically destroys entire buildings and ionizes shit together on Spider-Man. It's really good. Spider-Man being brought to the hospital and them having to treat him creates a lot of good dramatic tension. I love the scene with the Vulture where after Vulture takes him out the window in issue 4, he pulls the bandages off and he's like, "I don't believe this. Oh, those friends of mine you put away. I just assumed you'd have to be somebody. But look at you. You're a nobody. You could be pumping gas or stocking shelves when you're not doing this. Jeez, this is depressing. All those years of getting beaten by a nobody." I really like that. I thought that was a great moment. Black Cat coming in and saving Spider-Man, that was I didn't mind that. I know we just went on a bitching rant like 45 minutes ago about how Spider-Man has to get saved in his own book with Slott's run, but it's like here, I don't know.
It's relevant because in the other previous 3 to 4 issues, we saw him being active as the only hero in the title.
Yeah, so it's like
other than the Avenger cameo, obviously.
This one I didn't really mind too much. And plus, it's like Spider-Man did just manage to beat Electro, so it's like it was just the fact that fight had him so injured. So the context helps the situation a bit. The ending with J. Jonah Jameson, just like James said, it's like I can't tackle it any better than that. It
sets up a cliffhanger to probably one of the worst, things that ever happened in Spider-Man at that time.
But yeah, I mean, I have nothing else really to say. Thumbs up for me on all 4 of these issues. They're really, really good. So, James, thoughts on Marvel Knights Spider-Man number 3 and 4?
Oh, they're good issues, minus the Jameson thing at the end. The Electro thing was always this kind of weird thing for me when I was a teenager, because it's like, oh yeah, a shapeshifter can turn to any sexy supervillain cosplayer you want, and then he's like, but then he goes to that creepy character. He's like, well, when you're in prison, there's certain things that you start to like, and then you realize they're not going there, are they? Oh crap, they are. This is really awkward. It was okay for the early 2000s, but 2016, this is the most awkward comic book I ever read. Now, thank you, Electro. I'm happy you're dead now and dead no more.
Because of the prison, the non-consensual prison stuff joke.
Yeah. And once again, they call back to this can be hard to fit in continuity what happens later on in New Avengers. He has a girlfriend that he's supposed to have been going steady with for years, who he is doing all his crimes in order for them to run away together. That happens in New Avengers. Then again, Bendis is one to say fuck you to continuity too. But it's kind of funny, he had two books around the same time with Electro. We were both like, fuck you to continuity. Electro has a girlfriend? Well, I'm going to say that he got addicted to conjugal visions in the prison system. Well, you're going to say that. Well, you pulled out his eyeball, and he's going to have two perfectly working good eyes in my comic. Fuck you to each other. I am Bendis, I win. So you have that. But the rest of it's pretty good. You got the whole, like I said, Marvel Knights is the darker Spider-Man title. But it's done in a way, like I said in our first review, where it's dark, but it's not like Daredevil dark. It's not Punisher dark. It doesn't get super Jessica Jones Purple Man dark. You know what I mean? It's dark, but it's dark, but it still fits the character. It's just Spider-Man, but now he can say damn more. Or he can be a little more violent without killing somebody. So you can have, like, Vulture bring up, you just caused a kid with an terminal brain tumor to die. And it's impactful, but it fits. But then you get some weird things with the Electro eyeball thing. But that's what I love about Marvel Knights, how it was kind of like the PG-13 Spider-Man book. And like I said, the artwork by the Dodsons is... When I think Spider-Man in this era, I'm a big fan of Deodato's work on Amazing. I'm a big fan of JRJR. I'm a big fan... Even Ron Gardney, who worked on, Civil War and Black and Black. Like, he was probably the weaker of all the artists that worked on Spider-Man all the time. Ramos, of course, #1 is the weakest. But, when I think style, though, when I think Spider-Man, because this is one that got into comics, I do think their art, because I like the way they designed everybody from Peter, to Mary Jane, the Black Cat, the Vulture, the Goblin, Venom when we get to him later on, and Scorpion when we get to him later on, and Otto when we get to them later on. I like how everybody looks, and when I think Spider-Man around this time period, it's this artwork that I think about.
All right, James. So, any final thoughts? And do you give these two issues a thumbs up, sideways, or down?
Thumbs up.
All right. So, on that note, that's going to conclude our reviews for this episode. That's also going to conclude this episode of the podcast. We don't really have anything else to talk about. Next week, we'll hit up Marvel Knights Spider-Man 5 through 8, which is the second arc, and then the week after, we'll close it out with 9 through 12, and that'll take us through and through to the next issue of Clone Conspiracy. So, that should all work out pretty well. So, James, any final shout-outs or words for the listeners before we sign off?
I got a couple. First one is a shout-out to Chip Judlin, the executive producer and head writer of Power Rangers, Super Dino Charge, and Dino Charge. One of my all-time favorite writers on Power Rangers, and almost everybody's all-time favorite writer. He wrote some of the classic seasons from Mighty Morphin to Time Force, and then coming back for Jungle Fury during the writer's strike, and RPM, when RPM's executive producer got fired midway through at a gazillion. I met him at Power Morphicon. He's a really awesome, cool, awesome guy, Judlin. And some of my favorite final episodes of Power Rangers were written by him, but now I gotta say one of my least favorites was also written by him. But my top 5 are still all his RPMs, Time Force, list goes on and on. And this is a shout out to you. Dino Supercharge sucked. And the season was even shittier than sucked. It made a lot of people now like Samurai in retrospective, which is saying something. But dude, please, I hope everything's getting better. You guys can fix all the problems with the Ninja Steel. And no matter how much me and the rest of the fandom are batshitting how shitty this episode was, we know you're an awesome dude, and hopefully next season is better. Because it can't get much worse. Because if it was much worse, that already happened. It's called Mega Force. But anyways, and Overdrive. But yeah, shout out to Judlin. Shout out to the cast of Power Rangers down on Charge, because I met them too at Power Morphicon, especially Koda's actor, Yoshi, who is the nicest, most sincere, honest guy. Congrats to your brother, because if he's half the man you are, he's going to be an awesome Blue Ranger next year. You were awesome, and the whole cast in Dino Charge, super nice guys. I got photos with them on my Facebook page when I met them at Power Morphicon. Awesome people. Thank you for a good 2 years. You were an awesome cast, and I can't wait to to see you guys at future Power Morphicons and whatever. So shout out to you guys, and shout out to Ninja Steel because you guys are coming up, and then a month after Ninja Steel's premiere, we got the movie. So shout out to the movie cast. It's a good time to be a Power Ranger fan. There's always with Power Rangers, even when a season shitty like Megaforce or Super Dino Charge or Overdrive, there's always that silver lining of next year, and that's my ending. Sorry. No matter how shitty things are, there's always that silver lining. Unless it's Spider-Man, because we're stuck with Dan Slott until the year 3030.
My shout out this week: Marvel, Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, Dan Slott, Christos Gage, Sebby Cam, and Coley, Mark Millar, Terry Dodson. Thank you for Spider-Man. Thank you for the comics we reviewed this week. Other shout out. I know I shout this out every single week, but oh my god. If you did not watch this past week's episode of Supergirl...
I thought you were going to say water.
Well, yes, shout out to Pure Aqua Spring Water. But
shout out to Taco Bell, because I had Taco Bell earlier for dinner, but I still had leftovers of my Super Science drink. So, shout out to Taco Bell that I was drinking during the episode. So, technically, shout out to Pepsi.
Supergirl's episode this past week is one of the best episodes of television. Not just of Supergirl, of television I've seen in a long time. Like,
it's not in the Supergirl, even after it made the network change. It's like, yay, here's Superman, and I lost interest.
Are you? Oh my god. Okay, James, you just need to watch the most recent episode because I've
never been interested in Supergirl.
But James, you will cry. You will cry real tears just like I did.
Oh god, did Superman get killed by Doomsday?
No. Okay, you just need to watch.
I don't give a shit.
No. Okay. Look, Supergirl's sister, Alex Danvers, who's played by Kyler Lee or however you pronounce her last name. She was on Grey's Anatomy a couple years ago. She has had this whole coming out storyline this season, and it was the most it was like so emotional.
You mean coming out because this is DC? You mean coming out as in sexuality, not superpowers, right?
Yeah, as in sexuality. And it
was
like
DC likes DC and Marvel too with the X-Men loves to really do that whole get it. It's a metaphor for coming out of the closet. Wink.
But oh my god, it was like I literally cried twice. They had two scenes where I was legitimately in tears. So you need to watch it because oh my god, if you do not cry real tears, you are a heartless person.
I'm not interested in Supergirl, John. I'm not going to cry over something I'm not interested in. That's like you crying over something you're not interested in.
Like the Dino Supercharged finale. Pretty much.
You will cry from that though. You will cry, but you will cry of Jesus Christ, how fucked up is this in poor storytelling?
All right, but other shout-outs this week, none that I can really think of on the podcast. So yeah, I guess this is it. I can't think of any more shout-outs. Like there's one I feel like there's another one that I had in the back of my I know what it was. The Jessica
water?
What? No.
Water again?
No, I already did this one. No, I know what it was. The Jessica Jones title by Brian Bendis. I've been reading that, and I think it's really good. I'm
Trey waiting for that because it's Bendis.
Yeah, the new title, I think I've been enjoying it. So the Jessica Jones title that's coming out currently, I've been enjoying that. It's it's a mature book, so it's for mature audiences.
Really? Really? A Jessica Jones title is for mature ages? The character who literally popularized Max titles?
So, I knew there was another shout-out I wanted to make, so...
aren't you forgetting another one, John? There's certain holidays that we're not going to have an episode again until it's over.
Oh, yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving to all our other American fans out there.
Oh, yeah, that. Yeah, sure, that. Whatever. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you people out there.
Happy Thanksgiving, Pilgrims and Native Americans. Celebrate your holiday. Let's name that for you guys.
Yes. So thank you to everyone who tuned in for the podcast. And so we will see you next week. Have a good night.